Well, good morning. Sorry, this is the first time I've spoken this morning, so I still am a little congested, it seems. So for 2018, I'm taking a different tact on my morning sharing on the broadcast here. I'm wanting to really highlight the Hawaiianness of the mystics, in part, not all of it. I'm going to use mystics from all over the world. The mystical writings of Hawaii are beautiful, and they certainly are connected so closely and intimately with the beauty of what we so easily call paradise. So I'm out here on my lanai under my palm tree, and I want to share some readings. Readings of writings with you that reflect the spirit of aloha, kind of indigenous spirit. Welcome. Thank you for joining me this morning. I'm in Honolulu and on the island of Oahu, which means the gathering place, and it is in fact the place where most people seem to arrive, at least first, from in many throughout history. My name's Larry, and Larry Grimm, and I'm glad to share this with you. So I'm going to share some readings. Now, I want to say I have not mastered in any way mastered the Hawaiian language, and so there are some Hawaiian phrases that I'll attempt to say, but I know that I don't do them justice, probably, so bear with me, please. Excuse me. This one is called Popo. Before the land was tamed by industry, the oceanside resorts and pineapple plantations, before cane knives rust, the dark time of sickness, the coming of cannons, the bitter waters drunk, before the metallic salt of blood, the rain emptied into rivers, the winds carved valleys and mountains, before the earth spurted fire, birthed islands, her churning magma and her inner core of iron, before the stars dwarfed, their coronas ignited, before the centripetal spin of galaxies, the unwinding gestures of time and space, before the light and heat. There was darkness without breath, and Po pressing the entirety of a universe into a shell the size of an atomic nucleus waiting. A little bit of the grief around industrialization of the islands. Memory, this one's called. The ku'upuna are all around us now, caressing the grasses. The leaves on each branch, they won't let go just yet. Their dance makes the wind brush the clouds against the sky. Strokes of an orangish hue reflected in the gold of their eyes. It is summer, a quiet breath before the rain, and I am reminded of how often they would say the rain belonged to Wakea, as he reached for Papa through the waves of air and miles of night. But that was in the time before words, the land only a recent memory to the sky. Like so many mystical writers, the ineffable, that which can't really be expressed, is expressed through the metaphor of everyday life, and so beautifully captured in poetic images. And so it is, but they draw, of course, so much upon what's indigenously Hawaiian, or indigenously belongs to this land. Haumea. Out of her head, out of her breast, out of her mouth, out of her eyes, out of her skin, out of her breath, came the gods who lived off the length of her body, offering their piko in return. Came the soft green curve of the sun falling into the ocean. Came the encrusted salt pans, the cooled fields of Pahoehoe and Ahaha. Came the first young fern shoots over the insects who were unseen and unheard. Came the stars strewn as seeds in the heavens, spread by her hands and sown across the dark soil of space. Come the offshoots of those long germinated seeds. Welcome, thank you for joining me. I'm in Honolulu, and I'm very pleased to be here and to be able to share some indigenous poetry with you. It's indigenous in that it comes with the spirit of aloha, the indigenous connection to the land and to this beautiful, beautiful place. Hibiscus is the state flower of Hawaii. This one is called red hibiscus in the rain. I don't know if you know, but the hibiscus blossom closes up at night and opens again with the dawn. Though the red fire flower shivers with each tickle of water, her stigma hangs above her like a flare. To catch a pill of pollen in her mouth by chance, you ask her why and listen closely as she begins the story of her birth, from calyx to pistil, filament to corolla, opening the folds of her thin-veiled petals to reveal the light deep in her throat. E nuku e vai ka hayakala hol alo o ke akua ke como ahoe como kanaka. A chant of night falls over the clouds overhead, and she closes, drawing the fire inside her petals out of reverence for the stars. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, again, I apologize for not my possible mispronunciation, or even, hopefully I don't do it too badly. Hi from Russia. Do the indigenous Hawaiian language too badly. It's a very poetic language. The history of this place. Hello. Here, there are no visible remnants impressing the grass, no hahu to mark the many passings to which this place bore witness, housing the salt of tears of bone under the canopy of kupu. There is only the spirit of memory that stirs the air, dark and heavy, like a broth strained from the living, body of before saturating the earth, the rain sinking the old grief down deep, closer to the fire within. Formed from lava, these islands house a fire within, the magma deep within the earth that helped to shape them and to create them. And they, of course, some are erupting on the big island still, and flowing with magma. So this sense of the fire within is a metaphor for actually for their own sense of identity deep within themselves. And it's a beautiful fire. This one is entitled Pele. Pele is the god of the volcano. I was born in red, a fire call beneath the water, lava shooting from the earth, blood spilled over like a river calling forth ku'u in the waiting sea. I was born beneath, before sound, restless for the kupu in its quiet breath, falling to the black basalt in sleep, for the tide in its lay of salted steam. I was born in red, the incendiary bloom of the waiting sun turning in my womb, its Its hiwe spun into fire, blackened in the throat of my throat, in the heat of my throat's vibration. The first word was mine. The last word is mine. Pele. Readings from Hawaiian authors, mystics I like to call them. A friend of mine said, well, isn't all poetry mystical? And truly it is when we try to express the ineffable. The art of poetry is to express what can't be expressed, to speak what can't be spoken, to say what cannot be said. This one is, excuse me. This one's entitled The Salt Wind of Hawai'i. Sorry, I had that wrong. It's the salt wind of Hawai'i. In Hawai'i, the salt wind left nothing of your house but rusted nails, withered wood, the bowl of the ocean, and the sun sinking. For years you kept up with the repairing, replaced boards and glass as you thought you should in Hawaii's with its salt wind. Nothing could stop you from such rebuilding, nor bring you in from outside, where you felt your blood in the ocean's howl, in the night of the sun sinking beneath the waves. Your daughters were watching through a window, glass hazed by salt. We stood out of the haze wind and felt nothing near love, the creation for a windy sea that kept you, offering only driftwood in return. For all the ocean's howling, we could not understand the urgency of what stung your eyes, grayed your skin, and flooded you with Vaihe wind, having nothing but our father's howl, your head slowly sinking. There are a lot of these that have Hawaiian language in them. Hawaiian language has 4 vowel sounds, and then they shape those vowels into diphthongs. And then it has, I think it's 11 consonants. And out of that they built a language. In those sounds are the language. Language is first music, I believe. Language is first merhaba. Hello. Say squata. Say squats. Language is first music sung to people, between peoples. And this is, Hawaiian is, as are some other Asian languages, so lyrical and beautiful in its expression. Sadly, I'm not able to do it justice in my pronunciation. This one's entitled Yellow Orchids. Hello. The yellow orchids, about which you feigned interest, are almost all in bloom. Maybe you recall they were just beginning to open their ripened lips to the bright band of sun that bends its way through the curtains in the morning. The orchids grow fuller day by day, dawdle in the corner, polishing up each striped petal. I know in 2 weeks they will begin breaking away from the stalk, their open mouths swallowing the air-conditioned air around them whole before falling finally to the tabletop, the carpet. I hope they hurry. It is true that without you the days are passing slower than usual. With every detail of every day enlarged and stirring in its own crispness, Even so, I forget the specifics of details of what is here when I hear your voice. Everything I had meant to share with you, mentally collected, yellow orchids included, everything expires, even in the wait, as the clouds outside purple with night and as the trade winds persist against the glass. Inside, the volume of my refrigerator's electric churn turns down, phones round. Then your voice is distance. You. Lament, sorrow. Aloha is a combination of love and celebration, lamentation and loss, all together. They use the word to say hello and goodbye, but they also imply that there is so much more to life than just comings and going. It's a caring for each other and about each other. This one is the last one. Again, lamentation and sorrow can be expressed so beautifully in the Aloha mystics. Haloa Naka, the Kula house. It can be horrible what a house can hold on to, even long after the living have moved on. You see it in the pine board knots that look like eyes back toward the koa and the eucalyptus beyond the broken barbed wire fence where the fog sits waiting. They've seen that a house can be rebuilt with new wood and some varnish, the mold bleached over, all the glass cleared of webs and the remnants of the last few up-country rains. But it needs much more to clean itself of the memories. How dear your house is, how dear your home is, because of the memories that are there. When I go back to Denver, I will see some of those homes in which I lived for many years there, and I will not just see the homes and the houses, I will see the memories. Hello. Hey, thank you so much for joining. I've been reading poetry from the indigenous spirit of Aloha here in Hawaii and sharing the mystical writings that open us up into the depths of our own soul and heart. I love this stuff. Bonjour from France. Thank you for joining. Typical of indigenous and mystical poetry, but most is that the material world and the spiritual world are not separated. Now, if you look at the word material, it's in English, it's based on the word mater, and from that we get the word meter, to meter something. When you measure everything that we measure, and I think of that word material world, and I think of somebody running around with a what is that? It's not a slide rule, but a measuring tape, measuring everything. Stretching out their tape to measure it. We measure and cut. We measure and cut. And it's always interesting to me that in the Western European, in our European background, we have a lot of corners and squares. Nature doesn't create corners, squares. Nature is round and spherical, and it creates spheres, round curves. But we create material, our material world we create with corners and edges and squares. It's kind of interesting that my ancestors created what's called a square dance, whereas the indigenous created a hoop dance, and the hoop is symbolic of the horizon that they stand on a mountain top and look around. You see the whole world in a hoop. We make squares. We like to control things. So we put our thoughts in boxes, right? People like to put things in boxes and compartmentalize our thoughts, whereas nature is itself far more global and multiple in its processes. Mater also means mother, and so the material world is, for many of these writers, is the source of soul. It's the source of, and it's the way into soul and the way into the mother of our lives, of our being. Well, thank you so much for coming onto my morning Pure Inspiration from Hawaii. I'm doing this at 7:30 on Hawaii time, but I'll do it out in the. I may not do it on